Welcome to LG Transparent Conversations, the traveling podcast series powered by LG Electronics USA that brings crucial conversations about student-athlete mental health directly to campuses and beyond. I'm Taylor Rooks, and today we are at the Women's Volleyball Championship in Louisville, Kentucky. And today's topic is centralization and integration of mental health support. I'm thrilled to be joined today by our panelists, Eric Gross, Dr. Katie Nichols, and Victoria Garrick Browne. All right. Hello, friends, both in here and out there. Welcome into LG Transparent Conversations, the traveling podcast series powered by LG Electronics USA that brings crucial conversations about student-athlete mental health directly to campuses and beyond. I'm Taylor Rooks, and I'm very happy to be here for what I know will be another enlightening and important discussion. We are at the Women's Volleyball Championship in Louisville, Kentucky. I have some people here that are very excited about that. And today's topic is centralization and integration of mental health support. This episode will explore the critical importance of centralizing and integrating mental health support within student-athlete communities, as well as touch on strategies to foster a supportive environment and overall well-being in schools and at home. And I am very thrilled to be joined today by our esteemed panelists joining us to discuss. First, we've got Victoria Garrick Browne. A round of applause, Thank you. 2024 Forbes 30 Under 30 recipient, TEDx speaker of the viral talk, The Hidden Opponent, founder of The Hidden Opponent, a nonprofit for athlete mental health, former D1 athlete and Pac-12 champion with the USC women's volleyball team, podcast host of Real Pod, social media influencer with 2 million plus followers, known for #RealPost, featured in Forbes, Women's Health, and the New York Times, and a national speaker touring universities to destigmatize mental health and promote authenticity. My girl does it all. That is Victoria Garrick Browne. Next up, we have Dr. Katie Nichols. Yeah. Woo. Director of Mental Performance, Louisville Athletics and U of L Health, former mental performance coach, Amplos and Clemson Athletics, coordinator for student welfare and development at the University of Notre Dame, award-winning mental performance coach, and PhD in sports psychology from the University of Missouri. We are so happy that you are here, Dr. Nichols.
Thank you.
But can I call you Katie?
Of course, please do.
All righty, I love it, but I really like Dr. Nichols too.
Thank you.
All right, and last but certainly not least, we have Eric Gross from Louisville Athletics, the athletic program therapist, the owner of EMG Therapy. He started a crisis intervention team for the U of L Athletics Department. He played varsity tennis at Mitchell University and is a licensed professional clinical counselor and supervisor. Thank you so much for being here, Eric.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, a round of applause for Eric.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, what a star-studded lineup. How lucky am I? I'm excited to learn from you all, hear about your experiences, what we can do to continue to move the mental health conversation forward, and all the things that you all have learned through your quest to do that. But let's start at a base level. From your vantage point, what does it truly mean to not just say that you care about mental health, but to actually centralize mental health in athletics? What does that actually look like?
I think for me personally, my role as the director for mental performance is a little bit different. The lens is usually looking through how do the high performers do it differently, whether that's from an organizational standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, from an athlete standpoint. And that starts with healthy people. Flourishing people are what make flourishing athletes. And so for me, they're one and the same. If we're going to talk high performance, we're also going to talk about mental health because both are really important.
Yeah, absolutely. What about for you, to centralize mental health? What is that?
Yeah, I think for us, the biggest thing is the communication between everybody involved. There's so many people involved in making sure the athletes are successful. And for us as mental health therapists, we want to make sure if there's issues off the field, off the court, that everybody's involved, everyone's aware, and then we're coming together to make sure that those issues are being addressed, and then we're getting them back and being as successful as possible.
What is it like for you to hear those answers and you think about what your definition of centralization is, but also knowing what your experience was as an athlete?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's so special and surreal to be here in proximity to where the championship game will be being had, and then also to have this conversation in front of everyone. And I think that shows how much this conversation has really grown and improved and become more centralized. I feel like when I was a freshman volleyball player in 2015, I don't think there would be an LG truck having this conversation in partnership with the NCAA, right? So there's that, which is amazing. And then I think from the athlete perspective, as far as centralization, yes, we're going to work on our physical fitness, and we're going to watch the film, and we're going to practice how we can be better players. But then what are we doing for the mental side of our game? Are we seeing a counselor or therapist to talk through what we're going through? Are we meditating? Are we journaling? What are the things we're doing? And are we doing them equally and balancing the physical pursuit with the invisible mental pursuit?
I want to stay there for a second. So I mentioned off top, in 2017, you had a phenomenal TED Talk called The Hidden Opponent. And I think it's a great jumping off point for this conversation because you describe this very stressful day, this anxiety-filled day, and you're a student athlete, and you said that you look in the mirror and you thought, is this how I'm supposed to feel? So before I go any further, can you first tell us more about what those emotions were and what you felt in that moment?
Definitely. I think most volleyball players who play at the collegiate level, that's been their dream. That's all you want as from when you're a little kid and you first start playing. And so once I got to that level, while it was a dream come true, it was very intense. You're a full-time student, you're a full-time athlete, there's so much you're balancing, you're away from home, you're rooming with girls you don't really know that well, you're trying to make friends and fit in, you're wondering what you should study and what you're gonna do with your life, and if you're gonna start, and if you don't start, when could you get on the court? I mean, I felt like I had thousands of worries, and I did not have the tools to handle them or navigate them. So, that for me was a really big challenge that really defined my journey as an athlete, and I was really grateful that at USC I had the privilege and the luxury of seeing counselors and therapists and had incredible people on our staff just like Katie and Eric. So that helped me, it led the way, and then by the time I was a senior, I was like, oh, I'm nervous before a game, here's 5 things I can do to work through that so that I can perform and do the thing that I love.
No, thank you so much for sharing that. And so for you two, when you hear that, what is the appropriate response to that in a place where mental health is centralized?
Yeah, I think for me, it's great that you were able to see that progression. I think about both mental health and mental performance are skills, just like the physical skills, the things that you were doing rep after rep from the time you were probably 5. We don't necessarily get that same start when it comes to mental health and mental performance skills. And so to be able to practice those in those moments when I know I'm now aware of the feelings that I'm having, I'm now aware of the emotions that I'm having, and that's really the tool that's where the power comes from, right? Is having that ability to have the awareness first and then be able to have some skills to put into action.
What about for you?
Yeah, I think too, I love hearing that even back in 2015, it was available for you. And the stigma is slowly being taken down, and it's no more just suck it up and play, or, hey, I'm not feeling right, I'm anxious, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Oh, you'll be fine. Just push through it, you'll be fine. And I think dropping that stigma and allowing people the resources to actually seek help. And I think the biggest thing is saying, I need help. And for coaches and support staff to say, yes, we have those resources and we have this team available to help you through those tough times, to help you adjust to college life, to help you get ready for life after college too, which is a big thing.
And if I can add, the stigma at the time, it was significant. I could feel it. I remember the first day I walked in to the counseling center for therapy, and I almost felt out of body and was like, wait, how have I gone so off the deep end? How have I lost so much control that I'm here? I viewed it as a failure, and especially as an athlete, you want to succeed at everything. And now to sit here, it's almost 2025. Louisville is competing for the national championship, and we have 2 people from their staff here talking about mental health, and those are the people who are winning at the top. So it's really incredible how far it's come. I have chills for the girls who will come to this game, and they will aspire to be that kind of player, and they will see that this is what you have to also think about and consider and prioritize if you want to get to that level.
Yeah, truly understanding that it is a holistic approach. If you want to reach the high levels that you do physically, you do that by reaching these high levels mentally. And what you just said about the stigma that you felt when you were first talking about it, I think something that isn't always discussed when student athletes feel supported mentally, it's also fostering a sense of belonging. Because you know that people are there, you know that somebody is there to listen, they see you, they understand you. What does it feel like to make people feel that way?
I think, Victoria, to your point, the experience that you're having is a very normal experience that a lot of student athletes feel, that sense of overwhelm. I'm in a completely new environment. I have new people around me, new coaches, new teammates, new campus. There's just so many new things. And in that kind of space, to have people around that can normalize that it's okay to be feeling this way, this is how you're supposed to be feeling, and then be able to support you through that piece of belonging. I think true belonging, and I'm taking a page out of Brene Brown here, but I think true belonging. She's my girl. She's my girl.
Love Queen Bee.
Yes. But I think the true belonging comes from being able to speak up and say, I'm struggling right now, and for there to be people around you to say, that's okay, I got you.
Yeah, because something that was really striking to me also about that video is the slew of comments of people saying, I'm a D1 athlete and I feel that exact same way.
Yes.
You were touching so many people with those words, and that it was such a universal experience for some. But I think that asking for that help is the hardest step. Mm-hmm. So what advice do you both have for people that know that they need some help but they aren't sure where to start?
Well, I think for us, the whole key is to be able to build those relationships. Like, we're around practices, we are having little talks with our athletes on, it could be sleep health, it could be just how to manage through an exam, or, whatever the case may be. So if they are really struggling and do need to reach out, it's like, I'll just go to Eric, I see him at practice every day, and this is not a big deal. So it's really making them feel comfortable and making them feel aware that it doesn't have to be a major crisis to say, I need therapy or I need help. It could be small things, like I'm having issues in my relationship, I'm having, just those small things. I always tell them that there's no issue that's too small to come talk to. And we'd rather deal with the small stuff so it doesn't get to that crisis level and it doesn't get bigger. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Have you seen attitudes and perceptions around it change through that thinking?
Huge, yes. And even I had an athlete that, and I'm not sure if I should see you or not, but I'm having issues with my relationship, and I'm like, come on in. And after a few sessions, she's like, man, I'm so glad I was able to see you, and that helped so much, and I was able to work through it, and thank you. And so it's just those small things that, if we didn't have that relationship, I don't think he would have reached out and was able to seek that help.
Something it makes me think of as well is, if an athlete has a cut, they will go into the trainer's room and they will get a Band-Aid. They won't say, it's not gushing blood and I didn't tear my ACL, so I'm just going to let my cut bleed. They would go in for the littlest thing. So when it comes to our mental health and you're struggling with something at home or with school or with a teacher, like you said, it's important to go in, talk about the small things so they don't become the big things, and to normalize it the way that we get our ankles taped and we check in with a sports psychologist.
Something that I talk about a lot on LG Transparent Conversations is that mental health is a performance tool. It quite literally makes your athletes better. Can you tell me just a little bit more about the connection between getting your mind right and getting your body right?
Yeah, I think, I love that you were comparing to the athletic trainer in that scenario, because I do often say the mental health provider is kind of like our athletic trainer, and then the mental performance person is kind of like your strength coach, because in both scenarios, you're trying to better yourself in different types of ways. And so we have a lot of athletes that see both of us for different reasons. But from a mental performance standpoint, there's a real strong connection between our thoughts, our emotions, how our body physically responds, and then ultimately the behaviors that we choose to do and don't do. So in those high pressure moments that you were speaking of, being aware of my thoughts, being aware of my emotions. What do I need to do to either get myself up a little bit or calm myself down? There's so many strategies that we can use in order to get ourselves in a good place of being able to perform at our best.
For sure. So as you can tell by the slogan, life's good, here at LG, we really believe in the power of optimism. And I was watching an interview that you did about a year ago. And you said, by increasing optimism, we are building grit, but we're also building new pathways to help us find the good things. Thought that was such a brilliant answer, but can you further explain the link between optimism specifically and performance?
Yes, I love talking about optimism actually, because I think of it kind of like your superpower, honestly, because we often talk about grit and we talk about resilience, But what we're missing a lot of the time in the grit equation is that it starts with passion and then there's perseverance. And so passion comes from that place of joy and experiencing some of those positive emotions. And so that gratitude, that optimism that I can feel to even have the ability to be in this type of moment. I'm standing here at the national championship in my hometown. Like, that's something to be grateful for. And the more that I do that, the more resourceful I become, the more aware I am of the opportunities, rather than looking at this as a threat.
And do you feel like optimism can become a habit?
For sure, definitely. I think there's so much research out there to support thinking about 3 good things that went well that day, or something that I can be grateful for every day. And what I love about why it's such a superpower is that regardless of our situation, we have control over our perspective. And so no matter what the circumstances, we always have the choice to look at things either from upwards down at what I have and what I can be grateful for, versus downwards up of what I don't have, what they have, right? We always have that choice, and that's such a power to be able to look at something and say, no matter what, I'm breathing today.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for that.
That's really great. How do you try to teach optimism?
And I think along the same lines, like, people come to me all the time and say, I'm having anxiety. I've been having anxiety for weeks now, for months. And the first thing I say to them is, you don't have anxiety. You're creating anxiety by the way you look at things. You know, so instead of looking at the what ifs of life, and whenever we use the word what if, 99.9% of the time, it's the worst case scenario in every situation, right? So, so when we talk about optimism, it's looking at the positives, looking at the good, being in the moment, you know, embracing the national championship instead of sitting there saying, well, what if we don't win? Or what if this happens? What if this happens? Just being in the moment, embracing the achievements, and once again, taking the victories, and just really looking at, man, like, I can't believe I'm here, and there's no reason to what if myself or think about what happened.
For sure.
Just be present in the moment and embrace the moment.
Yeah, and to your point, like, not doing it to yourself
Yes,
is something that's really important. What role does optimism and gratitude play in your mental health journey?
I feel like I always had naturally an optimistic outlook, which was a blessing. And so when it switched and became more of a paranoia about everything and constantly assessing the threat. I love the movie Inside Out too, for the reason that it so beautifully depicts what it is like to experience anxiety.
Yes.
I'm trying to prevent myself from something uncomfortable or disappointing, so it's fear-based, but it's actually causing me more distress in the present moment to speculate what the future could be that's not even here. And so as both of you were talking, it was making me think as well about how so much of how we feel is dictated by what we think. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts impact your emotions, which impact your actions. And so sometimes I feel like while the national championship was playing and I was maybe feeling anxious, and if I don't play well in the first set, am I going to get pulled, or what does this teammate think of me? It's like, okay, let me just take a giant deep breath. Okay, let me wiggle my toes in my shoes. What's the loudest sound I can hear in the gym? What's the smallest sound? Sometimes I would look for someone in the audience eating a hot dog, wearing the other team's color, and be like, they don't care about me, they don't know me, it doesn't matter. Like, I actually got relief from, the perspective of zooming out and viewing how I don't want to say insignificant, but how normal and regular the moment was, because your mind can make it feel like it is do or die. The anxiety makes it feel like it's do or die. And if every time you go back to serve, you feel like your life is at stake, that's not a fun way to play sports. Yeah. So I had to learn that, and I'm grateful for the therapists who've helped instill those teachings in me. And now I like to think about pronoia, the belief that the universe is conspiring in your favor.
Ooh, I'm into that. Put it on a t-shirt, pronoia.
It's a meme. It's a meme I saw once, and I was like,
love it. Love that for sure.
I just think there are going to be a lot of student athletes that listen to this and they hear you speak and they resonate with what some of the feelings are and are probably aspiring to tackle them in the way that you have. But I'm sure it was a journey for you to get to the place where you could take the deep breaths, you could look at the person in the crowd, you could calm yourself down. What was that process so that they can take from that as well?
The first most important thing is accepting that whatever you're feeling, and reaching out for help. And that could be with a trusted loved one in your life that you feel safe with, and just letting them know, I'm kind of feeling the weight of the world right now, or I'm having a lot of emotions. I don't even know why or how to describe it, but I feel like I need support, or going to that mental health professional, which is what I did. And that was, like I said, transformative for me, and really helped me start to understand why I was feeling the need to achieve and be a perfect player, and why it was so difficult for me to, not always have a plan when it came to sports or school. So, counseling and therapy was major for me, and also community. That's why when I founded The Hidden Opponent, my nonprofit for student athlete mental health, I really wanted to cast this wide net and bring all these athletes together, because I would go to schools and speak, and so many athletes, I have a story and I want to share it, or I want to make a difference, or how can I help the next person that comes after me? And so The Hidden Opponent is really that space where you see other athletes who are being open and vulnerable about their experiences. You can help them. We do training on peer-to-peer support, so you can feel armed in those locker room moments. And it's been really great. We also have the Campus Captains program with ambassadors who are really the advocates on their campus.
Yeah, that's so great. And I love that you brought up community, because at LG we focus a lot on the importance of community, feeling support. Can you both share a personal experience of a time where your mental health felt very supported as an athlete? I'll start with you. I know you played tennis, correct?
I did. And, back then there wasn't much as far as mental health support. And I know I remember back when I was a freshman, we were in, I think it was a regional tournament, getting ready to go to nationals, and it was the final match, and the opponent I was playing, I had beat pretty easily in the regular season. So my coach just came up to me, was like, just win easily, you'll be fine. But I think the gravity of that moment, the more the match went on, I could feel myself getting tight, and I didn't have those tools, and I'm like, what is happening to me? And as things went on, mentally, I just lost control, started throwing my racket, definitely wasn't my most shiny moment, but it was really the first time that I realized, there's more to it than just swinging a racket.
Yeah.
And I ended up losing and did not handle the loss very well, and I just remember very vividly, my opponent's parents, just stay away from him, because I was just such in a bad place. And, after self-reflecting, a couple days after that, I'm like, I am never letting that happen again. Mm-hmm. And, I went on to coach and do some teaching tennis, and always focus on not only how to swing, but how to get through a match. And that was kind of the first starts of, really, I have to make sure mentally they're in a good headspace as points go on, as matches go on.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So as we talk about, the community, the support, the centralizing mental health, how would you have loved to have been taken care of in that moment, to be seen and listened to?
It would have made all the difference in the world. I wouldn't have had to, for one, deal with that for days and weeks after that alone, trying to figure it out by myself. And you put yourself now, if I was an athlete now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have this huge team, and it's not a big deal if I go seek mental health services, and, definitely could have prevented, I call it a meltdown, right? And especially even having to deal with it alone and having to go through that alone, it would have made all the difference in the world.
For sure.
Yeah, super thankful that, I look at the athletes now, and, they have all the resources available, not only physically, but mentally and performance, and just so thankful that we've gotten to this place.
Yes, me and you both, absolutely. Yeah. Is there a specific time that sticks out for you where you really felt supported when you needed?
Yeah, the first memory that comes to mind is, honestly, during my junior year, I was really struggling. I was dealing with depression and feeling very lost, and I was a defensive specialist my freshman and sophomore year, and I really wanted to be the libero, and I thought, if I just hang on and I become the libero, then everything will work out and I'll be happy and I won't feel nervous, and I didn't, and I just was getting ready for a game that night, and my best friend, who was not a volleyball player but was my roommate, I remember saying to her, would you just come to the game tonight so that I can look out and I can see you and it can just like make me feel grounded and supported and warm, and it makes me emotional even to think about it because it's so small but
so big.
But when you ask someone and then they show up for you, and there's a world where I don't ask, but I'm so glad that I did, because she said, of course I'll come tonight. I'm like, you don't have to watch, I know you've been to 100 of my games, just play on your phone or study, but I just want to know you're there. And so she came, and that's always meant the world to me. And I think it goes to show that when you do open up to someone, you'd be surprised. They are willing to help. They want to be there for you. I think it's one of the most beautiful things we can do for people we love is show up for them. I get upset with my friends when they don't tell me they're down. I'm like, this is what I live for. I'm here to help you. So that's a time I felt supported.
For sure. Well, first off, shout out to your friend
Aubrey.
Shout out to Aubrey for showing up, for being an important part of your community and making sure that you feel very supported, because when we talk about centralizing mental health, it applies to the athletic environment, the home environment, the academic environment. So shifting away from friends just a little bit, how can families contribute to that support?
Well, before we go there, I will say, so I was a competitive gymnast for 10 years.
Oh, I love it. Hey, we got all former athletes except me.
But I think what was very maybe unique to my experience compared to a lot of gymnasts for a very long time was that I had a phenomenal coach. And so to win state one year and then to have a very disappointing meet the next, it didn't matter what the outcome was. I had a coach who was going to meet you with a hug no matter what and was there to just support us no matter what. And stepping away from competing in gymnastics and trying other sports and seeing different environments, I realized this isn't necessarily the norm. Not every coach is like this. And I will say he had a very unique experience. He had kidney failure, so he would go in for dialysis 3 days a week. The rest of the time he'd be at practice.
Wow.
So talk about it's bigger than sport, right?
Yeah.
I think he really taught us that it's not about the outcomes, it's about the people. And so to have that support, but I think that in itself, it's not even just about us. In the athletic department, the coaches are the ones that are the environmental engineers. And so to be able to have coaches there to support, to be people that the athletes can go to in the day-to-day, to say I'm struggling today and say I got you, that means so much more when it's coming from a coach as well.
Yeah, and just that impact that it always has. Like in today, we're talking about how much it meant to you to have that person in your life that was showing up, showing you the importance of sports. I love that story. Do you have any thoughts on how families can show up for that as well?
Definitely. I think when we think about sport, it's gotten so big, and people will sometimes call it the Tiger Woods effect, right? Of the dad showing up and being out there grinding with Tiger, and that has created this false narrative that we have to start them early and they have to stay focused in one sport and it has to be very serious and we're going pro. And really, so much impact that families can have in the car ride home, right? Because what I say in the car ride home can be so impactful on that athlete, because they're constantly, especially when they're young, learning what matters. And like you said, if I'm going to the service line and my entire self-worth is on the line because of this serve, because that is how I got value from my family growing up, that's different than I'm trying, I'm putting in effort, I see your growth, I see you working hard. Those are different kinds of messages that family can give.
Yes. I was interviewing an NBA player once, and he said, there were so many things that I had to relearn because for me, love came in the form of applause. And when he said that, I just thought about how many athletes see that praise, like you said, as their worth or their value, or, oh, this person cares about me because they are clapping for me. How can you help people reframe maybe how they think about identity or just how they show up?
Yeah. I'm a really big proponent of knowing what your core values are, because at the end of the day, regardless of whether we're competing in sport or in a job or with friends or with family, those values are what make us who we are. And the more that we can show up in accordance to those values, the more we are really showing up as our authentic selves. And I know that gets thrown around a lot, to show up as your best, show up as your authentic self. But it really comes from knowing what my values are, knowing what matters, and then how do I show up more in those kind of situations as that.
For sure. What do you all do here specifically to make sure the families are also very involved in how we have that full approach holistically?
Yes. And I know we, over the last several years, we developed almost a mental health onboarding for our parents. So
I just got to stop you and say, y'all are on it. Yeah, I was reading about just all the different things that you all have instituted. Yeah. That's amazing. Yes, and I know that you all have the largest staff.
Yes.
That's great. So
does that happen freshman year?
It does.
Wow.
Yeah. So all the freshmen we developed, it's almost a 3-day training, like a 3-part training, and parents could go online. We could do it through Zoom. Or if they're in person, they could do it. And just really talking about expectations and what to do and what not to do and what we have to offer and how you could be the best version of yourself as parents to be there for your athletes. They're here, they have a lot of pressure, and here's some things, here's some tools that you could use to support your son, your daughter, your athlete.
Yeah.
So they get the best experience academically, socially, and on the field and the court as well.
That's amazing.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, so as we talk about this supporting and this framework and all the things that you all are doing here, do you feel proud about this change that you're making and how you're trying to enrich these student athletes' lives?
Yeah, I think having been in college athletics now for 13 years, I think, I think the thing that sold me on coming to Louisville was that they heard from their student athletes that mental health was important and their well-being was important. And rather than taking a reactive approach to, we're going to hire 1 or 2 people and that'll kind of be the Band-Aid, they said, we want to be the gold standard for the model for mental health and performance. And so I'm very proud, and I like to walk around every day and say, hey, we've got the biggest staff in the country, because it is. I think that was something that U of L really took on ownership of, as we want to be the model program for others.
Yeah, that's so great. I know I mentioned it earlier, but one of my favorite parts of doing LG Transparent Conversations is that I get to meet so many people like you that are at these campuses. And I mean, when I was in college, I didn't necessarily see my student athlete friends be supported in this way. So it's just so great that it has become at the foundation and the bedrock of what all of these universities are doing or hoping to do. How have you seen just your overall roles become more accepted and more utilized over time?
Well, I think we're going on 3 years as a team, but I remember back 12 years ago, I was working as a clinical director in a psychiatric hospital, and the athletic department reached out to us and said, hey, we were just talking, if there's any type of mental health crisis, can you help out? And at the time I said, sure. So we put a team together, went through a emergency psychiatric response training, and figuring, that'll be fine, but I doubt anything will happen. Well, 3 months later, there was a crisis, and we responded, and they're like, oh my gosh, this was great. Do you have maybe a therapist we could use, maybe part-time? And so put a therapist in there, part-time. 2 weeks later became full-time. And
wow.
But really for 7 years, our actually current director was the only therapist for the athletes. So to see that progress into, like, we are really going to put the time, the effort, the resources into putting a team together, and seeing our team come together, and even over the last 3 years, see it really blossom and flourish like it has, and for us to come together and really develop those relationships with coaches and support staff, it's just absolutely amazing to see.
Yeah, and I love seeing it being used so widely. You know, one of the things that I know you discuss often in your work, but you also discussed it in your talk, was the stigma that exists around talking about mental health, the uncomfort and tension that sometimes people feel when they bring it up. How have you seen that continue to dissipate over time? And I also hope that you recognize the role that you played in that as well.
Thank you. Really, I think these incredible athletes, I mean, first of all, you have Simone Biles, who is at this year's Olympics, the one to watch, the best in the world at what she does, and she's posting on Instagram at the Olympics about mental health. Nothing, I think, erases stigma faster than when the greatest athletes in the world are talking about the ways they prioritize their mental health. Because we, as athletes, I feel like you do always have someone you look to and you idolize. They might not even play your sport or be your gender, but you're just like, LeBron James, Kobe, whoever it is, Caitlin Clark, they inspire you. And so then the things that you see them doing, you feel it's okay for you to do it as well. So I think with so many athletes, Kevin Love, Michael Phelps, Allie Raisman, talking about mental health these days, that really helps mitigate stigma and pave the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you all feel the same way. What was it like for you to see, Simone Biles talk so openly about her mental health?
Yeah, I think that was phenomenal because not only was she talking about aspects that were happening in everyday life that were affecting her functioning, but also talking about mental performance as well, because we heard a lot. Everyone got to learn what the twisties was.
Yes.
and it's a very real mental block. And so for her to be able to speak to, again, I'm trying to better myself as an athlete just like everyone else is, and this is one of the resources that's going to help me do it. And to see her on the Olympic stage saying, I'm going to take my time to meet with my therapist while I'm here, even, it was part of the training, right? Like, I'm getting my mind right, I'm getting my body right. Exactly. Let's go win a gold medal.
For sure. And did she?
And I think to that point, though, like, as much as I think we being around really does help break the stigma, I think the athletes themselves are the ones that truly break the stigma, because when you have a teammate who openly is talking to you at practice about something, then all of a sudden that freshman sees, oh, this senior, this captain of mine is talking to our mental performance coach out in the open. It's not scary. I could go do that too.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to, as we close out, I want to look at the current state of mental resources for student athletes. Tell me what's working well, what isn't, and also what's next.
Well, I think for us, you came to the model school, right? We do it all right. No, there's always an upside, but I look at our team. For me, I get referrals from sports performance, from nutrition, from the academics, from AT, from everywhere. And it's just amazing to think that we have this whole team and they're always looking out for the best of the student athlete.
For sure.
Yeah.
And of course, we always look at, like, what can we do outside of our athletic department to outreach, to touch more people, and we're starting to take steps to do that as well.
Yeah. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think to that point, right, we have regular health and performance team meetings with each and every sport. So to have everyone on the same page who's all part of the student athlete support is a really good way for us to be able to make sure that we're not missing anything. I think it's really exciting that the NCAA has put forth an agenda that mental health support and resources are now mandated for every student athlete. I think sometimes where we fall short is places that maybe only have one or two people, or they are dual trained and trying to do it all at once for everyone. But the resources there, which is exciting. I think the growth and the way that it's centralized here and the way that we collaborate across all of our health and performance areas is amazing.
Yeah, no, I'm truly blown away by all the work that you all have been able to do. So it's amazing, and so thankful that we're at this place where we can even have this conversation now. It is LG, so we like to end with positivity. I would love to hear from each of you the last thing that made you smile.
The last thing that made me smile, the ending of the holiday Christmas movie
Oh,
I watched on the flight here. It is always so cute. Cameron Diaz runs back to him and he's sobbing, and then they all have New Year's.
That's such a great answer. I love it. I can't wait for my day this break. This is just all Christmas movies all day. I'll be smiling throughout the whole thing. What about you? Last thing that made you smile?
Knowing that my entire family will be with me for Christmas.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I have 5 daughters and a son, and some that are in New York and all over the place, so knowing that they'll all be here starting tomorrow, which will be amazing.
Yes, they'll hang with Dad.
Yes.
And I think you also had some people in the audience.
That's
yeah, there they are. Shout out to the family. Y'all made him smile. What about you? Last thing that made you smile?
Honestly, I think I've been smiling for the past 3 weeks now with our volleyball team. Honestly, I don't think you could have written a better script to get here, have some of our seniors who are from Louisville be playing in Louisville, representing Louisville. I mean, I'm just so happy for them, and it's such an amazing experience no matter what the outcome is, to be able to get to this level and get to this stage. I'm just really happy for them.
That's so great. Okay, well, mine is when I was on the way here, I saw the cutest little pup with like her coat and like, you know, the little stuff on her
shoes.
paws. Yeah, it reminded me of my golden doodle, and I just think dogs are
They're the
They
greatest
are angels.
on the planet.
They're the best.
Yeah, and it just made me smile how cute she looked in her little get up. So that was one, but also this.
Yes.
Truly, you guys have been absolutely amazing. I loved
Appreciate it.
hearing all the things that you all have learned throughout your journeys, the things that you are still learning, the progress that you have made, the impact that you are making right now. So to end, I just want to know why it was important for each of you to join this conversation today. I'll start with you and I'll end with you. Victoria?
I think honestly, as we talked about at the beginning, to be here at the national championship and be talking about mental health is amazing, because I think it's such an important piece to know that if I do want to perform at my best, it takes practice, it takes skills, and mental health matters in order to get to that level of high performance.
Absolutely.
I mean, to me, it's just drop the stigma. If you are struggling, if you need help, there are so many resources out there. And like I say to the athletes, there is nothing wrong with you if you seek help.
Yeah, for sure. Close us out.
I mean, I wanted to do this. It was a no-brainer because volleyball obviously was my sport and something that I played in college as well, and it's where I learned all the intricacies and complexities and beautiful aspects of what it means to have mental health, struggle with mental health, and try to figure out, you know, who we want to be and what we want to do in our one life. So it was a no-brainer, and I'm really grateful to LG for inviting me to do this and to meet and connect with you all. And thank you, Taylor.
No,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah,
You all
thank you.
truly
Thank you for
were
having us.
fantastic.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It was awesome.
Come back anytime.
Yes.
Come hang in the truck. Thank you to all of you that were listening to us. I feel very, very honored to participate in this conversation. Grateful to have sat here with you all. If you're listening at home, go back, listen to the latest episodes, and thanks so much for being here. Life's good. Appreciate you all.
Life is
Thank
good.
you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of LG Transparent Conversations. For more episodes and to catch up on season 1 and 2, check out LG Transparent Conversations on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or at lg.com/us/transparent-conversations.